tonight. She's ill, so Lynn's in charge of the notes.
Thank you, Lynn.
Oh, I'm excited about the notes.
Okay. So we did take the negotiated agreement back to the board and talked about the extracurricular salary schedule, and they were willing to leave that in this document, but as is. They just don't feel like this is a year that we can add any more money to the salary schedule. So I can unhighlight and unstrike out this part of the document. Oops, I didn't want bold. Darn it. Undo. Or is it not? I'm gonna strike it out. There we go. Okay, so that's back in there. Oh, wait a minute. Did I just undo the wrong thing? Why was this struck out?
I don't know why any of that was struck out.
Alright, so I don't either.
What part?
Maybe because I struck it out when I was trying to unstrike it. Thinking I was in a different section. The leaves. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it's all good. And then the other thing that they talked about that we need to talk about is under dual credit. They feel very strongly that since we contract our teachers to teach 5 days a week, that all dual credit teachers should teach 5 days a week. And so I know at Timberlake they already do that. So
we do it in Lakeland. We've done it for 4
But
or
are
5
you
years.
teaching or
Oh,
just
yeah, we're
doing
teaching.
office hours? Because we were told it was office hours.
No, I teach every day.
5 days.
Mhm. I mean, I can survey the staff, but I'm pretty sure I know that the ones that are very close to me and location-wise in the building, I know they're teaching all 5 days.
Okay, so I'm going to put that in there because the board wants to make sure it's in there. But that was the only change from the board's perspective on this.
Okay. That's fair.
If everybody's okay with that.
That's fair.
We did look at, I guess I'll put it down here. We did look at the idea of the stipend because we talked about the double dipping, and I've talked to the staff about that. The NNU letter that accompanies their payment specifically says that the money is to go to the teachers. NIC doesn't say that. Theirs actually lists that as last, and that there are lots of other things that they identify that we can do with it. But because NNU requires it, we didn't touch it. Am I remembering that correctly?
No, that's right.
Okay.
And you said NIC doesn't, or they recommended it last?
They recommended it last. They indicate using it to buy materials for the instructional materials or textbooks, and then professional development for the teachers, and then if didn't use that, if not those things, you could use it for stipends.
Going back to the extracurricular, you said that the board stated that there was no money to do anything with that schedule. So in the past, we've always, now last year we didn't do it because it was an oversight. We didn't talk about it, but in the past, what we've been doing is anytime there's been a raise, we've been doing it to all matrix.
Yeah.
So is that something that,
We're not sure there's money for a percentage increase. Like, we're gonna fight hard to make sure everybody gets their steps, because we don't wanna freeze anybody. But we're going to get less money next year than we did this year because of declining enrollment. So we're gonna have to figure out how we wanna deal with that.
The support units our support units this year, we were protected at 222.5.
Yeah.
We budgeted at 225. I'm estimating we're going to be at 213.5. We should have been at 213 this year, but because of the protection, we were
protected at 222, but had they paid us for what we have, we would have been 213.
So now there's still protections, but is that less now?
It is less because it's based on this year's numbers,
Uh-huh.
and then we still have to pay into it. So there's cost for protection as well.
Just insuring yourself, basically.
You don't have money, but you gotta pay into it.
Pretty much. So last year we benefited from that. We still paid it, but we benefited from it. There are some schools that didn't get protection and they just paid. So we did benefit from paying into protection last year.
So even when we're not in protection, we still have to pay into this self-funded insurance fund. Okay. Where did we leave?
I wanna say, I think we finished this.
Did we get through all the leaves last time?
I wrote down Article 5. Does that make any sense?
So leaves, bereavement leave? Is that where we are?
No, I think
Yeah, I wrote here, pick up at Article 5.
Perfect. Okay.
We did talk a little bit about bereavement leave because we have, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, we revised this, I think it was within the last year or two. It's been updated.
Yeah, we did it last year. Updated it. So are there any things pertaining to bereavement leave that we need to modify? I think what we did was we defined what immediate family was, so that it was always going to be the same. And then we highlighted the without loss of pay or use of sick leave because people understood that bereavement leave was actually, they were using their sick leave for that. So are we good with what we've got? Okay. Sam, what?
Yeah, we did talk about FMLA, I do believe, as well, because we were going to cite that we were going to use US code in here. Because we can't negotiate FMLA.
Yeah.
So at least I think we had US code. I'll forward it to you so you have it. And then we also have policy on FMLA.
So this is specifically family leave, but this is all about the birth of a child. It doesn't even discuss FMLA as it pertains to every other instance when it might be used.
I think that's because we probably have had, what is that? Is it not really specific? See, that's,
It's all about the birth of a child. So I don't know if under here we just need to
and that's
cite
in code too.
I don't know why we decided that we had to spell out how it pertains to
I don't know. And so I think we would do code and then, I mean, we also have a policy on FMLA. We could look at that, maybe cite that policy as well, cite the policy, cite the code. And then let me see if there's Idaho statute, because the thing is like, in Idaho, we don't have paid FMLA. And so they're.
Unless they have sick leave that they can use.
Right, they have to use their own PTO. So,
Do you know why we have it just, because FMLA covers a lot of different situations, not just pregnancy. I'm not sure why we're calling it out.
I think we reworded it because there was confusion about whether you could use it or not in that case. I can't remember why we did it, but there was a purpose for why we put it in there. Or it was because people were trying to use other days for something like that. I can't remember what it was.
Right, well, and we don't even have in here anywhere that, because this all talks about the mother, but the father also gets to take FMLA.
exactly.
Well-
That's
So
why
it's not, it's not
Except
written in here.
Unless they both work for the school district.
Under the D, it does talk about if both parents are employees.
I know that one for sure.
Okay, it
That
is
one
there.
pertained to me.
But this is just if both parents, nowhere in here does it say that if we have a staff member who's a dad and his wife is having a baby and if she doesn't work in the district, that the dad can take.
That is in the law.
Okay, I'm not understanding why we
I
called this out
don't
is all
know,
I'm
that's
saying.
why I'm
It just is so.
a little concerned that it's in here because, I mean, we do have, I have the FMLA handbooks and everything that define what each, what they can get as far as.
Yeah, because it's not even fully covering it. So, how do we?
So question on all the things that the ABC, et cetera, those are covered under the law. We don't have to define it here. It's not anything different in here than it would be in the law.
We can't actually negotiate it because we are
It's
bound
a-
by the law.
Right, so I think having the statute and the code in there was what you would need, and
And then we can
when
take the
somebody
language
needs to
out.
take the leave, they
That's what
meet with
purpose
Brooke
wanted
to
to
say,
do.
what does the code say, and they can do their own due diligence to learn the code as well.
So can we just say that under family leave, the following federal act and policy define this leave, and then we just link in those two documents and we can take the language out?
And we are working on a certified handbook. And so, I mean, we can put a lot of the language in the certified handbook as well as, like I said, we have handbooks just specific to FMLA that the feds distribute that I can link into the certified handbook. But whenever we have an FMLA issue, I always counsel our employees on the ins and outs and the laws of it, so.
So like on the only one I was wondering about, so family, let's see, per FMLA, both parents in the district, if you're in the same employee, so that would matter even if they're not a part of the district, if they were taking FMLA for another business. If you're employed by the same business, it's 12 total.
So where is the actual law?
So I just sent it to you in your email.
And then what's?
And if you want the handbook, I can send that to you because it's a lot easier to
Well,
interpret.
I don't want to, I just want to put the link in.
Yeah, I think the only reason we put it in there is because people were asking to use it
You know,
at
we
different
had,
times.
I know
For
this,
different reasons.
Split it up.
Split it up over time, and we just wanted to have it firmly in there that these are the reasons you can use it.
we also.
I'd be fine with it being in somewhere else. I don't think it belongs in there either. But we put it in there as an explanation because they read that part and then they're
Right.
like, oh, I can just use this. You can't.
And that's why I really feel like, I mean, I'm working on a certified handbook. I just think, you know, we've been using the negotiated agreement as a catch-all.
Yeah.
Because we have a classified handbook and then we didn't have a certified handbook and it was like, oh, refer to the negotiated agreement, but that's not the purpose of a negotiated agreement. It's usually, I mean, negotiated items, so.
Do we know what our policy number is?
That talks about it.
I like the look of our new website.
Yeah, it's, my computer is running super slow. So
Your new one's almost
you
here.
might get to it before
Yeah,
I do.
pictures are cool.
Yeah, Jackie did such a good job. So I'm assuming this would be under
It's under
personnel.
personnel, yeah.
It's 5410.
Thank you.
And interesting, there's no statute stated at the bottom. Not that I want to add more work, but if we're going to cite that, then where we have personal sick leave and leaves of absence, do you want to be citing policy throughout the negotiated agreement?
I don't,
I just want to put it here just because this isn't something we can negotiate because it is a federal law.
And Brooke, you said there's no state statute?
I'm gonna look more into the state statute because like I said, Idaho does not have paid FMLA, whereas Washington does. You have to use your PTO in Idaho, and then after that, it's leave without pay. So, or it's the sick leave bank, if they're a member and they qualify.
Is what you just said stated in statute somewhere?
I'm trying to find it.
Okay, well, you know, if it is, then we need to include
So
that.
the Division of Human Resources for the state of Idaho just refers back to the federal FMLA Act.
Okay.
I would want to find
It doesn't show code.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look further to where it states it's not paid, and maybe.
So
There?
it's referred to in IDAPA
Okay.
15.0401 242. So we can look at that. Okay, personal leave. So certificated personnel will be granted 2 days of paid personal leave each year.
one of the things that did come up on our survey, a few times was taking off the parameters. And just because those have to be approved anyway, and so, you know,
Yep.
can't you just,
Just say that if you're wanting to take personal leave in the beginning or the end of the school year or attaching it to an extended vacation, the superintendent has to
Right.
approve first.
yeah.
I'm fine with that. That's what we're doing. Are you guys okay with taking all of these parameters out? Up to D? And just saying, anytime personal leave is used to extend a long vacation or the first week or the last 5 days of school year, then approval from the superintendent is required, and take out all of the other language.
Other stuff.
I guess my concern, it may create a trap for you. You approve one and not another, then you have those kind of ripples to deal with.
But we're-
If it's stated, it's stated.
Right, except that it's all, unless permission is granted from they all say unless permission is granted from the superintendent, so that's literally what we're already doing, so, and the way that I've been doing it is working with the principal first to make sure the principal's comfortable with it, and then if it is approved, it's only approved if there's a guest teacher that is secured for the days, but, or if we're at the time period where we're struggling to get guest teachers, I have had to say no. So, but they all say the same thing, basically, is they can ask for permission. What are your thoughts, Dean?
So would you leave anything in there that keeps the permission from the superintendent is granted?
I think what Jason said was, can we just say basically just have an A, that if you're wanting to take personal day during the first week of school or the last week of school or attaching it to an extended vacation, permission is required from the superintendent prior.
So just consolidating A, B,
Mhm.
and C
Yeah.
into one item.
Yes. So it's all set, it all says the same thing, we're just putting it in one instead of breaking them apart. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I mean, and you could even say it's recommended that, you know, if you really wanted to, you could say that first week of school and whatever, but I wouldn't have a problem with that. But I just think, I mean, you have to grant them anyway, and so, you know, I wouldn't, well, I guess I can't speak for all certified, but it would be amazing to me if someone wanted to take a personal day the first week of school just to have a day off, but some things happen, and so.
Right,
those are
there,
the ones
yeah,
that-
I think I've only had maybe 2 people who asked. One was because their son or daughter was getting married and they wanted, and they were traveling back
Right.
from that, so in my mind, I would approve that.
Yeah, there's special circumstances.
It's a special circumstance, yeah. Most people don't take professional days during that first week of school.
So basically, are we saying A through D that it would just be subject to superintendent approval for personal days in general, or just for that
No.
particular time period?
No, I think what we were saying was, can we just have one that says, if the leave may not be taken during the following times, and it would just be the first or last week of school, or extending a long break unless permission from the superintendent is granted, and just put it into one, but
And then you would be communicating with the,
it's all exactly the
Yeah.
same as what we're doing now, it's
Yeah.
just
Shortening.
shortening it.
okay.
Otherwise, there's no change. So, I mean, we can leave it the way it is, because we're basically going to say the very same thing. So if it makes more sense to break it apart like that, we can leave it that way too. Because we're really not changing anything, we're just changing the length of the document.
And Jason, do you feel that gets to the intent of whoever put that on our survey?
Yeah, I mean,
What was the survey item again?
I think that the survey was more geared toward they would just like to not have those parameters.
just have the
To be able
freedom
to
to be
That's why I asked the
able to
question,
take a
because that's how I
personal day,
interpreted
but-
that.
But the procedure for a personal day is you have to get one principal approval
Right.
and then your approval anyway, so, you know, if it's on these circumstances, but yeah, it was just take off the parameters.
Yeah,
Which ultimately I don't have a problem with taking off the parameters because then you have to give those approval anyway. I mean,
But if we take the parameters off, then it doesn't really say that
yeah,
that
that you can take them
you
anytime.
can just take them anytime. That would be problematic for me if there wasn't some sort of communication with somebody that we're taking an entire week off for Thanksgiving and then taking another week off immediately following Thanksgiving. I mean, that puts the classroom kind of in a bad place
Yeah.
especially if several people do that and we don't have guest teachers to cover. So that's the only reason, in my mind, that's the only reason it comes to me is I'm obligated to make sure I have a teacher in the classroom. And as long as I do, I really have not denied people's requests. I mean, they're always for good reasons. And we do have language in here further down that allows them now to roll their days over so that they have 5 days, which means they're, a lot of people save it for an additional week, but that only happens once every few years because they've got to save them. So that language is also in here. So I just think because people are able to do that, it would be a little bit problematic if there wasn't that step to make sure we, don't have a bunch of people who are all going on a cruise together and there's nobody in the building, right?
They can teachers cruise.
And oftentimes when I get those requests, that it's the cost of the travel over the holiday that is the problem. So people will save their days so that they can go visit family for Thanksgiving or Christmas, but they're traveling outside of the normal holiday time, so.
I would predict if you make that move, you will have some folks who repeatedly make those requests and others who never do.
Mhm.
And I think one of the reasons that language is in there is to protect against that.
Lisa, if I may, we're beating around the bush on this. None of us are really wanting to make a lot of change, so leave it alone.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
guess if I was really mean and I never approved any, then we would have a different conversation, but
Yeah.
I honestly can't think of any that I haven't. The only one that I know of that was iffy and they needed to work with the principal was I had several requests in around that May flex day, and I knew we had a few, so I just said I can't approve this unless I know for sure that we have coverage. And then the teacher said, well, it doesn't have to be on that day, so I'll choose a different one. So it all worked out. But okay.
Yeah, it was also in there on the personal day to see about changing it from 2 to 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just thought I'd throw that out
yeah,
there.
We won't know the budget for sure until Jessica gets it written. We have a budget workshop with the board. My concern about adding another personal day is that's 250, 300 more substitutes, guest teachers that we're hiring, and that's a big cost to the district.
Yeah.
Especially since the language is that you can only have 5 in any 1 year, which means they're going to have to use them, or we have to pay them out, and then we have to pay them out at their daily rate of pay, which is a lot more than what we pay a guest teacher. And this is not a year when we can afford.
Being so negative
I
tonight.
am sorry, but
We're being realistic.
Jessica, I have heard nothing but no from Jessica for like the last couple of years.
We also added that new language of incentive days not long ago, so they get incentive days as well.
For not
Plus,
using sick
then
days.
there's opportunity, as we've talked about at like Lakeland Middle School, where if they are doing lunch duties, they are able to earn personal days. I mean, so there's opportunity.
All of the schools have
This
a
is
personal day.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's number 9 on our list, and so I don't even really. I would rather talk about the top and go from there before we get into any of that anyway. So if we want to just go back, to the negotiated agreement.
That's where I am.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll leave personal leave the way it is.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. Okay. Sick leave. Everybody gets 10 days of sick leave every year. So we can use it for illness and immediate family. I do think we need to talk about this language right here. Except in an emergency, sick leave shall not be used for doctor or dental appointments unless the appointment is prearranged with and approved by the principal, which we have to do already with.
It was recommended in the notes that we
Take that
out.
Yeah.
Because the struggle we're having is dentists and doctors a lot of them aren't even open when our teachers get out of school, and then the only way to go to an appointment is to use a sick day.
Yeah, that's actually in our notes
Exactly.
to
So
strike that out.
I would say strike that.
Bob, are you okay with that? Our staff is struggling to be able to go to appointments that they can't get them outside of the school day.
I'm thinking.
I can give a personal example to maybe make sense. So I was injured on the job a year ago. I can just finally get in to see the neurosurgeon tomorrow. because they don't go to past 3 o'clock. I've been sitting with a bad back for a year.
Really?
They made me go through physical therapy first, shots in my back, and I'm finally getting into the neurosurgeon. And so,
And do you have
And-
to take time off to go?
no, and luckily they're gonna get me in right at 3, so I'm able to jet out of there and get there, but they kept calling me, we have these openings, but it's like during the school day and I don't like to leave my classroom. So if a
Right.
teacher's leaving their classroom and using sick leave to do this, it's something that's imperative.
Yeah.
No teacher wants to leave their classroom because it's a lot of work to leave your classroom in the hands of a sub.
agree.
And so I think it's really imperative. People don't want to waste their sick leave.
Yeah.
If they can get an
this is
after-school
common.
appointment, they're going to get the after-school appointment because they don't want to use their sick leave for this.
But our elementary people don't even,
They don't get out that early.
they can't typically leave the building until 3:30.
Exactly.
And if the last appointment's at 3 o'clock, there's no way for them to go to a
Exactly.
doctor's appointment. And dentists are even worse,
Mm-hmm.
so.
Yeah. So I
I would just like to take out the except in emergency and just,
So these are the notes from, so we did talk about all this.
you're on the sick leave bank.
Oh,
I would have to agree from an HR standpoint. I mean, it's related to medical, it's related to health. And I mean, of course, we want our staff to be in good health and we want them to be taken care of. And for me, for example, me personally trying to get in for a dental appointment for a 6-month
Yeah, so
preventative
just
check,
right.
I've been waiting, it'll be 1 year because I haven't been able to make an appointment. I've been on a waiting list. But it's just things have really changed since COVID and, and the medical era right now. I believe it's health related and.
And we're incentivized to save our sick leave for retirement anyway, so people are not wasting their sick leave.
Absolutely.
So if they're
incentive to.
right, and if they're using the a sick leave day to go to a doctor appointment, it's imperative. It's not something you put on until summer break or
Exactly.
whatever. So I think that should go.
So just declare an emergency and let them go.
Can we just strike this language and not have it in here?
yeah.
I would agree with that.
Thumbs up?
Yeah.
You good? Alright. Okay, so unused sick leave may be accumulated by an employee without limit, subject to rules and regulations and statutes of PERSI.
There's one other code I'd like to have in there. That's 33-12-16, but I think there's a 33-12-17. Yeah, it's 33-12-17 as well.
Okay, I just added it, so I'll highlight it.
We've done a lot to make sure that we're referencing code. Do we need to have this kind of language in this, or can we shorten it down?
Well, when we get in, there seems to be a lot of controversy when it comes to sick leave. Right now, I have an issue where I have a classified staff member who wants to be paid out on their sick leave. There's statute stating they cannot be paid out on sick leave. I have people that want to use sick leave as personal days. There's a statute that is specific to that. And so I just feel it needs to be well referenced. A lot of people are like, well, where's it at? I can't see, where does it state that I can't use it? So basically when you get into sick leave, it's ownership of the district for our employees to use until you retire, then you're able to use it towards your retirement benefits. We have it on our books, our auditors, it's a liability to us each year, but the point is there's law on it.
And there is, just for the group too, on when you cash out your sick leave, it's not the same as you do, like it's not the same as PERSI when you retire, where you can include sick leave is based on where you're at
It's just your base
salary
salary.
schedule.
Right.
And so That's because it's a district,
District
it's
pay.
a district pay in, and so it's always been that way.
It's not, an
We-
employee does not pay into the unused sick leave and PERSI. It's just the employer. And it was 1.2% that the employer was paying in. We haven't had to pay in since COVID, but all that goes into a state pool to fund our unused sick leave during retirement.
I still don't understand. I understand what this is saying.
Well, you're asking why are we not just citing the code and why do we
Yes.
have the language? I think what Brooke is saying is that this happens to be an issue where people have a lot of questions, and so a little bit of language might be helpful. I think that's what she's saying.
I defer to you because you're the one receiving the emails from the staff members that asking a billion questions of.
I mean, you could just take all that stuff out. I mean, and again, we can put that in the certified handbook. I just feel, I mean, it's unused sick leave comes up almost at every cabinet meeting. CDI.
I think Mark's point is let's just be consistent. So
Mhm.
if this is something we
Sure.
can't negotiate because it's codified, then we just
I agree.
identify the code.
Because the more narrative you have, then it feels like it's up for negotiation and discussion.
Right.
So when it truly isn't, then, I mean, unless we're adding a piece that there is some wiggle room, but if not, then I agree, it should just be.
So this could just literally say unused sick leave is governed by Idaho Code 33-12-16 and 33-12-17 and take the rest of the language out.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, that's what Oh, I should have struck all that. Sorry. I'm sorry.
We also have policy on it, so I don't know if you want to.
We'll just leave the
Okay.
Idaho Code is good enough.
Squeaky wheel.
Yep.
I'm in Brooks' corner on that.
You want the policy also?
Well, then, I mean, there's also policy, I mean, statute under PERSI, which is, I think, under Title 60. I mean, we could, I mean, it keeps tying back. I mean, I can probably do some digging and whatever statutes tie to this, I can bring back. And put in here.
So policy is 5405.
Right here.
And legal references in that policy are 33-12-16, 33-12-17, 33-12-28, and Act 29 USC 2601.
There should be a PERSI one in there too.
This is specific to Percy, so what, what's the, I wonder what the 33,
So hold on.
12.
The
There's-
33-12-28 is severance allowance at retirement, family medical leave.
that's probably something we want in
They
here.
also have terms defined for PERSI. It's all definitions. And it's in statute. It's in the 33, 12-17
33,
anyways.
12, 28, 12, 28.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put the policy.
It's up here already.
Okay.
So we can take this out, because it's up. Do we need to, so this was our note defining it, but it's up here, employees contracted for a complete school year will receive 10 days of sick leave, and we can put right here 1 day for each month worked. If you want that on
Yes,
there.
because I ran into a situation where we hired somebody mid-year and it said just 10 days of sick leave. And
Isn't
so,
that per statute too?
yeah, it is. It's,
Yeah.
Is it already
Is
says.
that an or? 10 days or?
Well, it's, but if you work full-time, it's, so you want me to put an or?
I don't know, I'm asking.
I would say
Shannon, you're
or.
the English teacher, do we need an or there?
Either way, it's gonna be fine.
12-month employee, you get 12.
Doesn't it already say it at the
It
bottom?
says 10. I get 12 since I work 12 months.
Yeah,
Oh, you do? I thought it was just 10.
no, I think it's 12. It's 1 day per month.
This is, but not teachers, this is specific to teachers.
And
but
that's
yeah.
why it's limited there.
So, were you didn't strike that language below, you underlined it? Did you need to? Do you need to strike
Oh.
that?
I don't know why I did that. Let's try that again. Thanks for catching that.
We just really want to emphasize that.
Right. Clicked on the wrong. And then I can take this out, Jason. This is our note for us to take care of. Okay, certified.
Can you go back up to where the paragraph where you added isn't it saying the same thing twice there? Or is
No,
that-
because what Brooke is saying, when we contract somebody in January, they don't, if we don't put the or 1 day for each
Oh.
month worked, they would
thinking
expect
they get
10
the
days.
And
So
I ran into that situation.
And they
Alright.
should only get 5 in that scenario.
Okay.
Okay. Certified staff shall earn 1 incentive day if no sick leave is used during the year. And then you get 2 if you go 3 years with no sick leave.
I do have a
Please
question
can't
about the
be
last
clearer.
sentence.
Oh, sorry. Can we go back to the sick leave, just where you added that? Because you were right. I mean, I went back to read it because it already says that in that paragraph. The next sentence, the number of sick leave days
Oh, yeah.
allotted for less than a complete year will be at the rate of 1 day for each month of service.
Or any portion thereof.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was trying to say.
Sorry, Jason.
I got you, Jason.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, so we're good? We don't need that extra language. Okay, thanks for catching that. All right, are we good with the incentive days?
Yeah.
Well, there's some things came up in our surveys. We had negotiated, or in interest-based bargaining last year, came up with the 3 consecutive years of no sick leave, the employee earning 2 incentive days. Some staff had suggested that if that continues on, you get 2 thereafter until there's a break, if that makes sense. So we're on year 4 now, I believe. So if somebody got it year 1, year 2, year 3, they got the 2, year 4, they're still doing it, another 2, year 5, they miss it, and they start over year 6. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think we're in the same boat with just adding cost to the district for additional.
How many people earn the incentive days?
I couldn't tell you off the top of your or in my head. I have to pull a report through, I think payroll, but
And do we track those? Because this says that they have to use them or they lose them.
we do track those
We do
incentive days.
Okay, because
yes.
they can't be cashed out.
No, they can't, and so we track them. But I'd have to pull a report on it. So I mean, we have a lot of people who have earned them,
Okay.
but
So another thing that also came up was the possibility of allowing retirees to cash out a certain number of incentive days.
That's in incentive days, not sick days.
Just retirees to kind of do a last minute boost before retirement.
yeah, I mean, it's just more money cash.
It's
out,
just,
so.
we're deferring liability on that.
What do you mean deferring liability?
Well, it's a liability to the district that we have to pay out eventually. So if we continue to let it build.
Right, but this language says they can only have 5 max. So I think what they're saying is if you're retiring in your last year, that is just a little boost to your last year of pay, which helps your perceive.
That's the idea behind it.
Yeah.
And also honors the retiree.
Well, the fact that they've earned incentive days because they don't take sick days, and then they didn't use the incentive days because they don't want to be out of the classroom.
Like I said, it would be just a one-time deal, just for
I don't
retirees.
think it's gonna be that big of an, it's just the daily rate, so it's
Yeah.
not a huge impact to Percy.
Yeah.
I think it's worth adding to a list of items to talk about when we get to the money.
Okay.
So we'll come back to that.
That's number 10 on our list.
You guys are mean.
We're looking in the wrong direction.
I know.
I don't know what this would, Brooke will need to do some money, or some calculating for us to figure out what that will cost us.
Okay. Average like 10 retirees a year, and then if they all had like, 5 days without like a.
Well, technically, we would give them how many that last year?
Yeah, I mean, that's just something we're just gonna have to discuss when we get to the money portion of it,
Yep.
to see where we're at.
But they all, I don't know if they'd all have 5.
Some would have 0.
Yeah, some would have 1.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But if we talk about like what if we had a worst case scenario and just average that out.
yeah, I think if you're budgeting, you gotta budget for 5, or at least look at that number, but realize that it won't be that. Yeah, we can move on.
Yep, okay. Okay, sick leave bank. We worked a lot, I feel like we worked a lot on the sick leave bank last year.
Yeah, and there was stuff in our notes about that too.
Yeah, we had talked about, again, paring this down somewhat, and then we have maybe put it in the certified handbook, but I don't know, it's up to you guys. I definitely want it dialed in, cleaner. Because we've had a huge uptick in people utilizing the sick leave bank, unfortunately. The real circumstances, we just had a lot of.
There's a typo here, because this doesn't make any sense. Members of the sick leave council should be members of the sick leave bank, with the exception of an administrator appointed to represent the district office, period, the board appointed members.
I feel like somebody was trying to add that.
Yeah, see, and last time we decided we were gonna strike out an administrator appointed to represent the district office. And it was going to say, and then we added the board appointed members.
Okay, so this just didn't get cleaned up last year? Or is this what we
That's-
said for
This
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 year?
is for this year.
Yeah,
This
discussion
is,
this year.
but I'm not sure why.
Members of the sick leave council shall be members of the sick leave bank. The board appointed members?
With the exception of the board appointed members.
Oh, I struck out too much. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
With the exception of. The board appointed members. The board appointed members can be, right? Because we have administrators who are members of the sick leave bank. Or is it just teachers?
We have 2 building administrators.
No, I'm talking about who can be, because members of the sick leave council shall be members of the sick leave bank, with the exception of the board appointed members, which are administrators. Are administrators not allowed to be members of the sick leave bank?
Well, that can be.
They are.
So that.
So why would we put that in there?
Exactly.
Unless the board themselves were on that committee, would they be?
No, that specifically they have to appoint 2 administrators or directors.
I have no idea why that's on there.
I wonder, was that something that Ramona suggested last time? I don't know, because it's in our notes, and so
Yeah.
we obviously had discussion
I
on
could
that.
add it in there in the notes.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
So, members of the sick leave council shall be members of the sick leave bank, and can we just leave it there? And then if we end
Yeah.
up with a board-appointed person who isn't a member of the sick leave bank, the board might have to appoint somebody different.
Yeah, because we aren't gonna start taking my sick leave bank requests to the board, right?
Heavens, no.
Yeah, no.
So I have a question. Since it's 2 and 2, so only 4 people meet with you on that? So what if there's
Lisa's
like a
the
tie?
tiebreaker.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Like, what if there's a tie? That's an even number.
There's never a tie because we have one person who asks a lot of questions every time and the other 3 are like, oh, that poor person. So it's always 3 to 1 or 4 to 0.
If you keep in mind, if you put that the way you have it, the board could appoint one of their own.
Yeah, can you please?
No. So the sick leave council shall be composed of 2 administrators or directors appointed by the board and 2 teachers appointed by the LEA. And then can we just strike the rest of this? Does any of that have to be on there?
Well, they should probably be members of the sick leave bank.
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure.
I would leave that on.
Yeah, the board appointed members got added.
No, that can go, but
Through just bank.
Just, ended at bank, period.
members of the sick leave council shall be members of the sick leave bank, period.
Period.
Okay. And we can get rid of the rest.
Mm-hmm.
That makes more sense.
Protect yourself.
So you don't want to be in charge of that, Bob?
Okay, in the event of a tie vote, the superintendent, sexist.
This must have been written
There's
in
those
law.
pronouns.
That's right. His or her designee shall cast the deciding
You
vote.
sure you got enough pronouns there?
Then we struck out number 4, I believe. That was the recommendation, council.
The council shall.
Review or revise the
So
guidelines.
we actually struck out 4 and 5.
Well, because this is all actually, the guidelines and the rules are all actually part of the negotiated agreement, so that would come through this body, not the council.
So we do review it annually.
Mm-hmm. Is everybody okay if we strike number 4?
Yes.
Bob?
Well, I think it's in there to ensure that somebody's paying attention as time goes by to what's outlined procedurally.
So, but
Otherwise,
it's-
people can just shrug it off and keep on going.
Right, but instead of the council doing it, which is the 4 members of
Right.
and Brooke, then what's happening and has been happening is it's this group that's going through the procedures.
Well, it says we also added human resources will keep track of the sick leave bank membership and the number of days accrued.
In number 4?
7.
Yeah. So how do we want to adjust 4 so it actually represents what we're doing? Because this isn't what we do, right? This is not our current
I would
practice.
strike it.
Yeah, I would strike 4 and then put what we recommended last time.
What did we recommend last time?
Number 7.
Number 7's down there. We added it last time.
There we go. Yeah.
So that just talks about the number of sick days and the value of it so that the board knows what the liability is for the
Yeah.
district. But this is actually talking about reviewing and revising the
Yeah.
guidelines, rules, and regulations, which is actually what we do every year when we go through this document.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, that's true.
So does it need to be in here, or do we just say the IBB team shall annually review, and because it's not the council? If we want to make sure that we're continuing to review it, then
Yeah.
we can.
Well, the council can do it and make recommendations.
Do you ever meet with the council?
No.
Do you want to meet with the council?
I think the council, there's some members on that council that want to meet with you, or at least one wants to make sure that there's meetings every year.
So we could say that the council could provide suggestions for, or could annually review? I don't know.
Recommend revisions.
I just want, whatever we put in here, I just want it to match what we're actually doing, so we're not adding more hoops. Thoughts, team?
A moment ago, you mentioned that the IBB shall annually review. I find that more appealing than the council.
Okay, anybody else have a thought? Are you good with that?
That's fine.
Or just basically say that the sick leave bank shall annually be reviewed or revised during the negotiated agreement process or something like that.
The interest-based bargaining?
Yeah.
So, what did you say? The sick leave bank? Sick leave bank shall
Guidelines, rules, and regulations
shall be
reviewed annually.
Shall be reviewed annually and can we take and or and say to revise the
Yeah, to revise the verb.
We can say the sick leave bank shall be reviewed annually
for possible revisions.
We just say to revise the guidelines, rules, regulations, and reporting procedures necessary to implement the sick leave bank. Instead of making a bunch of changes to the verbiage. Guidelines, rules, and regulations shall be subject to approval. Is this okay the way this reads now?
Who is the sick leave bank?
They are not doing anything. The sick leave bank shall be reviewed annually. During interest-based bargaining. To revise the guidelines, rules, regulations, and reporting procedures. There. Now the sick leave bank isn't anybody, Bob. Thank you for catching that.
Yep.
Okay. This seems like a silly statement
Struck that, I think.
because the whole document is subject to the approval by the Board of Trustees and the LEA.
I agree.
Yeah.
Strike good.
Bob, are the wheels turning?
Well, where are the guidelines?
There.
Are there guidelines other than what we see
This
here?
is it. No. Are there guidelines written anywhere?
Not that I've been able to find.
Okay.
It does mention up here though. Shall be administered by the Sick Leave Council in conformance with the regulations set forth in this agreement. So all this says is who's on the council But it doesn't have any, there are no directions as far as
The process.
the process and what isn't there language around somewhere around
yeah.
sick leave?
Down.
There's a lot in
Down
here.
towards, you keep going.
Oh, it's right here.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
there's,
in
yeah,
here.
like, it takes 2 pages,
All
yeah.
right. There's,
Yeah.
Almost the rest
Panicking.
of the document is
okay.
this.
Okay, so I'll take out this part because the whole document gets approved by the board.
Yeah.
And the LEA, upon being hired by the school district, the Human Resources will offer the new employee the opportunity to sign up for the sick leave bank. Acceptance or denial will be documented, and then they will keep track and present a year-end report. I need to make sure that goes on the board agenda. All right, so here's the eligibility, and we added Idaho code.
Yeah.
These are new. And it's 85 days over their lifetime. Okay.
And then we struck out the enrollment period shall be from the first day.
And
that's
with
second language.
the red is the new
Yeah.
language.
Yeah. Command.
Shift X.
Which one's command? There is no command. Is it the window
Control.
or the alt?
Control.
Oh, control.
Or max, it's command.
Yeah.
That's why we don't use Max.
Um, Did we say that already? Employees who donate 1 day of accumulated personal sick leave to the sick leave bank shall be members of the bank and eligible for its services. And then, right here it says it again, the employee must donate 1 day of personal sick leave to the bank to become a member. Does it matter that we're saying it twice? I guess we're really hammering it. But they have to,
Yeah.
they have to tell me.
And then Brooke, where are you at with the sick leave bank? Are you thinking we're gonna need to donate a day or put in a request for that, or?
Yeah, it's low on the certified side. I would say we would look at it again after we do our new hires to see where we are, but it's the lowest it's ever been that I've seen.
What is the process there? Is that an IBB thing, or is that just the sick bank's low and so it just automatically?
So is there
requests it?
language in here that states if it's low, then we would go out, because we did go out with our classified staff last year and had them re-up. So I would hope we have language in the negotiated agreement for certified staff of doing the same thing.
Just as in the event the sick leave council assesses additional days to keep the bank solvent, a member must donate the required additional day to continue his or her membership in the
Yeah.
bank.
Yeah, if you do an assessment, anybody who's a member has to contribute another day. If they don't, then they're no longer
Right, they're
members.
no longer a member. That's kind of what we did with
Yeah.
the classified staff. But let me see what we have here. We have 63 days left for class or certified staff right now. So,
Since we have fewer days than we have left of this school year, I would recommend that we do the assessment during the open enrollment period for everybody when everybody's got a sick day to give. We may have some people who want to participate who don't have one right now. That would be my recommendation.
And when we do the assessment, that won't ding us for the incentive leave. That'll be noted somewhere. Okay.
Okay, maximum capacity shall not exceed double the number of eligible employees. That's I don't know who came up with that, but that's what it's always been.
I thought we struck out like starting with days withdrawn during 07-08 contract year.
Oh yeah, we did, because that's no longer relevant.
It just tells you when it was created.
Good lord.
Yeah.
Some historical
It's
information.
a familiar date.
That was the first year I was the head coach at Timberlake High School.
That's when she graduated.
Baseball.
Oh,
That was my senior year.
wow, you're such a little baby.
Youngin'.
Okay, regulations.
Can I just bring up something? I know when you did the classified this past year, someone in our building came to me and said, how am I affected by this now? Because if I don't donate a day, I am no longer eligible for the sick leave bank, but I don't have any days left to be able to give one. And so I encouraged them to communicate with you,
So then-
and it got pushed to the
No, so
Following
then
year.
their sick leave is reallocated in July, so then they would be able to do it during open enrollment when they
Right.
do have a day.
And I think that, I mean, that was the resolution to it, but this person, when they came to me, because of when it was asked, then there was a time period I have to donate my day or I'm no longer a member. And then even with that resolution, okay, I can do it in July. What if I had an incident? Would they still be covered?
No.
So it's a good thing to talk to our members about making sure you save a day.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, if possible,
Yeah.
If
make sure you have a day.
Well, and I
There.
would tell you, I don't know how often we do it for classified, but I've been a member of sick leave bank since it started, and I remember giving one when we started it, and then I only remember one other time.
This will be
Yeah.
over 3 and 30 years from now.
Yeah, so this will be the third one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in 30 years, I will have given 3 days, so it doesn't happen that
Right.
often.
On the classified end, can they build up their sick leave like we can?
So, yeah, and they're able to use that at retirement as well.
Okay.
Yeah, we have not had any incentive days for them.
Right.
As far as when they're not using, what they do get is they do get a stipend, or not a stipend, it's a
little bonus.
a little bonus. If
Not
they have
everybody.
good it's an attendance bonus, is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the best thing we can do for all of our staff is really talk about the importance of starting early and banking your sick leave, because it makes a huge difference when you retire. And when you're 20-something, you're not thinking about retirement, but
Yeah.
it definitely has an impact. And when we first started, I can remember, and I'm sure you do, we were capped. The state said you can only save this many sick days.
180 or something.
Yeah, something, and then now they've taken the cap off, but, I mean, that's how people get from retirement age in Idaho to Medicare age, is saving their sick leave.
Yeah, and having gone through that, I can tell you it's pretty important.
So I just think if we start having those conversations, then maybe we won't have people who don't have a day to give and the time.
I think this particular person was hit severely through the COVID time.
It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, I think it's also another conversation with the fact where I'm seeing a lot of our younger staff coming in who are using sick leave a lot for various reasons, and when we get into, I'm going to use it for a personal day, or I just can't do it today, or whatever, it impacts our sick leave bank, because then all of a sudden when they've abused their sick leave and they have something catastrophic that occurs, and then they have to go and borrow from the sick leave bank, that impacts our other staff.
So we do need people to be cognizant of that. Did we have any changes in
No.
here? Savings clause. this is just law that, or language that says if there's anything in here we're doing contrary to law, then we'll fix it. But I think we're aligned to the laws that pertain to Percy. Teacher workday description. Okay, no changes there. Is this new?
I think this is where we left off and not sure, I don't know,
Did we add the board policy?
must, yeah,
Because
must
it's
be
yellow,
done,
I'm gonna
yeah.
make it blue.
And there's also a yellow under prep time too that I don't know why that's highlighted.
Okay, all teachers will be granted one prep time per day of at least 35 uninterrupted minutes for elementary and at least equal minutes to one class period taught for secondary. Oh, this was, we wanted to talk about the expectation and we wanted to put it in the negotiated agreement that all specialists are ready to teach kids on the first day of school.
That's right, yeah, that's where it came from. Okay.
I think with the exception of the library and technology, but
Yeah.
for this, any certified teachers who are specialists, the expectation is that they're gonna start the first day of school.
We
with
tried to
kids.
get away from this being like a building specific kind of thing, because then some people, there were just different start and stop times, and then that impacts people's preps, and so, but with what we're asking for library, I feel like, and the other piece is library has to input all of those student rosters, and so they just always have needed time for that. And then tech is doing all of the computer stuff, and then they have to get their rosters going too, so for if they're teaching classes, so those were the two that stood out of they might need to start.
One of the
the
things
second
that comes
week.
up every year is the timing in which the Chromebooks are being in elementary and middle school, high school too, but because I think the high schools are getting them right away, but elementaries are waiting 2 weeks, if not more. Is there any way that our tech department could roll those out upon, or any earlier?
Something we should put on our operations. And
Because I think they have, because I think they're full staff. Don't they get full staff before teacher start dates? Doesn't there?
I think, I mean, what, I don't feel like I can speak to this intelligently. I
Yeah.
feel like they're helping with all the teacher,
Yeah.
that stuff, and then.
They
so
also
then
have to batch and roll
all of
and
that.
do all of
And
that.
so then when,
Yeah.
and some of the issue at elementary is there's only one person trying to get all of that, and then
Yeah.
they're, because they are assigning it to kids, they're making sure all the
Yeah.
paperwork's back, so it's not like there's 4 people, so I
Yeah.
think that's why it takes a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But I don't know that for sure.
It would be
I
nice
don't
to maybe
know
have the
specifics.
conversation, because I know a lot of the teachers are feeling, kind of strapped. They want to get going on assessments, or whatever, and start their curriculums right away, and it's hard to do that without having a
I would
computer.
just ask Chad about access to Chromebooks for elementary sooner.
So one of the things that keeps coming up that I think we need to address in here under prep time, and I don't know how to do it, is at the elementary level, different than secondary. On the very first day of school, secondary teachers have their prep. At the elementary level, we have some of the prep courses, the specialist courses, are being taught by certified teachers like PE, music, and those kinds of things. And then we have library and technology, both of which are taught by a classified person. And so in the case of the library, because now we have to spend that time inputting all the information that we get with regard to the genres that people opt into, but there's no way the librarians can start library right away. And so what we ended up with was some schools did a really good job of using title staff and other staff who weren't working with kids yet to cover
ALP
classes,
teachers.
to allow teachers to have their prep right away. And then other schools didn't do that, and then we started getting requests from teachers for us to pay them for teaching on their prep, which wasn't intended. So I don't know.
Can we state in there which ones, I mean, shouldn't PE, I mean,
All
that's,
certified teachers
Yeah.
who are specialist teachers
Should
are
start
expected to start
day one.
teaching on the first day of
yeah,
school.
that's what I would say, and then,
But it doesn't help us with this class.
I just feel like we do have people in the buildings that aren't attached to kids, and if we're saying it's just 1 week, right? If tech and library is going to start that second week, we're really talking about 4 days.
they don't know, they're taking more than 1 week, I guarantee.
But if we write that in there, that it's
Yeah.
just a week,
Yeah, then
We're
I
talking
think,
about 4 days.
then I think it would be fine, but that is not happening.
do you feel like it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
And I'm
At least two.
saying at least
Oh.
2, if not 3 or more.
I had mine after 1 week this year.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just think we should be consistent, and then if we're,
that's what I'm saying.
so if we're talking
That's
about
why this
4
is on
days,
here.
how do we just
Yeah.
make sure that, because there are people not attached to kids, can they help out
Yeah.
so teachers are getting preps?
Yeah,
Well, they're getting paid to be there. to teach.
Right. And so then we list that, the preps will be supported. We don't have to lock them in, but we can just say preps will be supported with however that verbiage is. But we probably do need to talk to the librarians and the tech and just find out what's a reasonable, how long does that process take?
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, and the 1 week, like the first week, it would be similar to like at the secondary level when we have SATs and ISATs. Sometimes we have to give up our preps for proctoring or covering for other classes so they can have a break. And so there's times that
It happens.
it happens,
Right.
right? But
But
1 week
3
is very,
weeks?
no, I think the language is saying 1 week, I think is a reasonable thing that if I was elementary, I'd probably be comfortable with it, just like I'm comfortable with if I need to
Yeah.
cover for SATs, it's just a 1 day thing and it happens. But 3 weeks, yeah, that's too long. 1 week seems reasonable.
And I just assumed it was 1 week, but maybe it's longer. I don't know.
It definitely was more than 1 week this year.
Okay. But it sounds like you only had 1 week, so not
Yes,
consistent.
Mm-hmm.
So the buildings were all over the place, it sounds like, so. So do I need to reach out to the librarian to Chad and ask that question?
yeah, I would appreciate it if you could just see,
So we'll just leave this highlighted for now, and we can come back to
Sure.
once we have a little bit more information, figure out what we want the language to say.
okay.
Because I do think the principals did the best that they could to try to cover,
I
but
was
when
just
it,
gonna say, looking at it from the other just devil's advocate, don't the principals have supervisory roles to play here? Can't they just say like, hey, this is what you get to do today?
yes,
I'm just asking.
they absolutely can. And Lynn and I felt like we were pretty clear with the principals this year about
Yeah,
that these
Yeah.
two specialists have to start the second week of school.
Right.
But what became problematic was in some schools it didn't happen, and then we didn't know about it until
Okay.
Jason brought it to our attention. So
no, and I
we just want to
understand
have some
that
language.
equity
that-
across buildings becomes a big issue for you
Yeah.
guys,
Yep.
but
Well, and I would say it's the same with start and end time. So like, are some people want to end after, right at, Memorial Day? Some people go, so we have people that go up till the last day.
You're talking specifically our libraries.
Well,
for the
I
most
mean,
part?
I've heard that there's been others. I think if it's in here, then we know, and it's really clear, teachers know.
yeah.
It's not, well, when is my prep stopping and start, so we just,
Plus there's not as much wiggle room in the admin side.
which is why I said to Jason, I just think it needs to be in here, and so this
Yeah.
this is a reference point, it's just clear.
Okay.
And obviously, there's exceptions to the rule sometimes, and I think that can happen, but everyone is planning for this is what it is. I just think it
Right. I
makes
guess
life easier.
if people know that in the first week of school, there is an expectation that my kids are going to have PE and they're going to have music, but they're not going to have library and they're not going to have technology. that's the expectation, and then there's no expectation then that they're turning timesheets in to get paid for those 2 days. But I do think we need to kind of define what we think is acceptable, because
Yeah.
I just want to be able to hold people accountable to that.
I just want to be able to ask the people that are doing it, what is a relative time frame? I don't,
Yeah, and
my
I don't-
assumption
yeah.
is a week, but
I don't-
it sounds like people were able to, but I don't.
And I don't want to
I don't know
hamstring
that.
technology. I mean, those guys are
Right.
so busy, especially at the beginning. I was just wondering.
Right.
you
Well,
know,
and
So I
this
just
year
wanna
the
ask.
librarians were super busy because in addition to inputting all that information into Destiny, they also were still finishing up job notification. They did a lot of work over the summer just to get ready. So this year we knew it was going to take them more time. But then we can work with the principals once we decide what the language is going to be, so that they're very clear about what the expectations are, and then we can help brainstorm. If you're going to allow your technology person not to start until the 3rd week of school, how are you supporting the prep times in the interim? That just needs to be the conversation.
So question about the library form, the kids that are still in the district, so they're going to 4th to 5th grade, is the information's input, do they have to redo
They
it?
have to fill out a new form every year, but the first line at the top is, I'm not making any changes. And then they can just put those off to the side, not deal with them, and just focus on either the new ones or parents who want to make some changes to the genres. So we tried to be pretty thoughtful about how we put that together so we could limit the amount of time.
But they literally have to manually go into Destiny to put whatever that code is. It's not, there's no way, even though some of the buildings decided to use it as a Google form to make the chart easier, you have to literally line by line manually, they don't talk to each other.
That's a rough policy. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Okay. Do we have
The
any
librarians
changes?
usually need some time at the end of the year too.
That's why I said, I just think we should,
Do you know
what
how
does that
many
start?
numbers
And
are
I think
highlighted?
tech does too,
I
because
think
what
it's
elementary
Monday.
said is that if they wait up until the very end, we actually had Chad come to an admin meeting. But when we wait till the very end, then we don't recoup a lot of, like if there's any
Yeah.
damages or computers, so just wanting to have a little bit of a buffer.
So
But-
first week, last week.
Yeah, I just wanna ask them, because in some buildings, they made it like, they were like, nope, the tech person can do it after school, after kids leave, and so then that building, there was some loss. And then you had other buildings where they pulled it 2 weeks before, and so then teachers were like, well, you got your, so I just think we just need to be consistent and have clarity for the teachers. And I think the real issue is elementary. At the secondary, I think you guys have figured it out, because I think they've just worked with you specific to what works for your building, but at the elementary, it seems like
But they're
it's
not
very.
teaching classes
Yeah,
either,
we-
so
our
it's not a
schedule
prep
just-
time.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Elementary, it's just really inconsistent, it sounds like.
Yeah. And we also need to work with technology about when they're collecting the Chromebooks.
Yeah.
Just like at the high school where they want to collect them a week before school's over so they can say they've looked at all of them and they've done that, but we use them. And
Yeah.
Well, in the middle school this year, I don't know if Timberlake was that way, but in our middle school, we didn't get our Chromebooks until the 2nd week, and then it went by grade level, and so like 6th grade didn't get theirs until that Friday. And so you get it Friday, so you can't even use it till the 3rd week.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I mean, that's kind of just pushing it when you're wanting to go.
And we can maybe work with Chad to brainstorm how that could look a little bit different, so.
I know when we talked to him about with the admin team regarding the Chromebooks, and then it was more about when they get turned in, he just said you just have to know that there's potential loss, because once the kids are gone, then those damages those pieces, so they're just, with every decision, there's a cause and effect that you just need to be aware of, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every choice has a cost.
Yep.
Okay, we didn't make any changes to emergency closure, delayed starts, teacher workday, okay. Yeah, we are legally required to train our staffs on a regular basis in CPI, and it's like a 3-year rotation, I think. And the only time we can do that is either after school, but at the secondary level, that's very problematic because of all the coaches. And so the only opportunity to do that is on that teacher workday. So we are just requesting that, because we said the only exception would be scheduling like an active shooter drill with your staff or the CRACE training, but we are wanting to add CPI training because that's a legal requirement and we don't know where else to put it.
So are we gonna, can you define CPI training? I'm sorry, I'm not.
So this is the, and not everybody gets this training. So it's every building has a crisis team and they are trained on, there's only one type of restraint that we can use in the district, and it's this restraint, CPI restraint. Part of the training is de-escalation strategies, so that's good for the whole staff. But that can be delivered also to the whole staff through staff meetings. But we have to be able to train the people who are on the crisis team.
And so
It's a crisis prevention
So,
program.
I mean, the other thing, Kelsey does work with principals to try to use guest teachers when she can, to pull the teachers out of the building for that part of the day. Sometimes we get to the end of the year and we haven't gotten to everybody yet because we haven't been able to do that. So this is one of those things that we just want to be able to have as an option.
It's just really hard because to do the full day, I think it's a full day. I think the initial one is longer than that actually, but I think when you're just doing the renewal, it's like a full day or a half day, something to that effect. But the issue is oftentimes the people you need to pull are the critical people that you can't have all gone at the same time. So because the principal has to be there, the counselor has to be there, the special ed. So that's the bigger issue. Like they could do it probably during school days, but it's the people you're pulling is problematic. Your PAs have to be involved most of the time. So
And that's probably why you can't do it on a curriculum day, because then the principals, they're guiding other activities with their staff, right?
we don't really have curriculum. But,
Well,
I mean,
how many admin and counselors, okay, admin are on a longer contract, but how many, so every counselor in every building? And then, I mean, like, I was just wondering
And your
if
special educators,
if it's happening every year that they have to do the renewal, every 3 years? So I wonder if every third year when they're doing the renewal, they could do it on a particular day that's a non-contract day and get an extra personal day that year. And then it's not impacting teacher work days, because I know that those days, we have grading to do. I mean, that's, things that have to get done. So having that training is also probably, like, they're gonna have to do that over the weekend, and then there's extra time. I don't know.
I feel like at least at the elementary level, at least what I did is when we did the training, then I just gave the teacher, like if we trained for a half day, then at another time I gave them a half day sub to do their stuff so they could get their stuff done. Or a full day, so that included like whatever it took to prep for that half day. I mean, we tried to make sure that they were compensated for that, but it's just not easy when, the critical people are the people being pulled.
So on our professional development day that we moved to November, could it happen on that day?
Well, then they're just missing out on whatever PD the district is offering.
Yeah, but I mean, it sounds like that's critical.
that's only once every 3 years.
So I mean, if that's a possibility, I think that would be a good use of a PD day. It's very practical use of the PD day instead of philosophical, and I think that would be a good use of the day, and the people that are taking the training would feel like, okay, I'm not losing out on classroom time or other days off or whatever. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense or not, but if that's a possibility, I think that would be a great use of that day, actually.
can they train more than one team at one time?
I think they have, and that's definitely more of a Kelsey. I feel like they have a system now, and I haven't been trained in it for several years, so I don't remember what they.
Because if we're doing it every 3 years, potentially every year we've got 3 to 4
Well, and
teams
the
that
issue
have been
is,
trained.
ideally it's every 3 years, but then you have new people because people have left, and there's a refresher, and I don't know how often they do the de-escalation portion, or if the every 3 years is just the restraining portion of it. That's the piece I don't know. So that would be a Kelsey question.
So, if we leave it on here, it leaves it open to the possibility, and it's really then dependent on that team, because just like with the emergency drill, we're only doing the emergency drill on that day if the majority of the staff agree to use that day.
Okay.
So if we have it on here as this is something we could do, then the principal would have to work with that team to say, can we do it on this day? And then if we do this, how do I?
So does it need to be worded, the only exception would be scheduling an emergency drill with staff or CPIA training with approval of members of those teams?
Yeah, because that's how we're doing it. We didn't put the language in there, but that was definitely when we added the emergency drill, that was the discussion.
Yeah.
Was that the staff had to agree to it.
So
if we add that?
That would be, I think, a good idea. Yeah. I think that would help people feel better about
Let
it.
people have some flexibility, yeah.
The only exceptions would be scheduling an emergency drill, and this is like, I'm actually going to define it because it's not just a lockdown drill. This would be an active shooter.
Would you just put CRACE?
Or CRACE training with the staff or CPI training.
What's CRACE?
Citizen response to active shooter event. Okay, so help me with the language then. The only exceptions would be scheduling an emergency drill with the staff or CPI training with the majority of the staff supporting the use of this day.
Probably the team. You're not gonna ask the whole staff if it's only gonna affect 4 people.
Well, it's the staff or the team. If it's an emergency drill, it's the entire staff.
So you're.
So I can put /team.
Yeah.
I like that.
Lisa, can we spell out CRACE and CPI? Because not everybody's gonna know what that is.
That's
Citizen
something I have to deal with my wife.
response
Because she's smart.
to
Did you spell out
CPR?
not yet.
It's
I
okay.
don't even know what CPS stands for.
Crisis prevention.
We met here at the Mentees and.
It's institute? I would have thought it was intervention.
I know, it's a non-violent crisis intervention, but the CPI actually stands for Crisis Prevention Institute.
That's probably why they're good. Fucking parents are. Also, you know. Yeah.
Okay, is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
And we're done.
And what was the yellow that was up there?
End of quarter workdays.
Oh, it's
But-
right, because we don't,
That,
we don't really have.
yeah, had you highlighted those things yellow because you wanted to make sure that we
That
talked
we,
about some?
right, so because, I think we leave it because everybody has those end of quarter days, even though the elementary team is on a trimester. That was the,
Yeah.
that was the reason it was highlighted. So are you okay if we just take it
No,
off?
that's okay. I was just clarifying what the yellow meant because we skipped a couple yellows
Yeah.
up above.
The prep time one, I was kind of hoping we can go back to the yellow, the dollar amounts that
Yeah.
people are paid to give up their
And-
preps.
Even above that, the SWD instructors, teachers, those were, had some highlighting.
Yep, and we just went through anywhere there was money, we highlighted it just to, because if we're gonna do anything with them, it has to be part of the financial.
Okay, so we don't have to do this today.
No, no, I just, that was when we went through it, we were like, okay, that's a money thing, so we
Okay.
just wanna make sure that we didn't miss it, but,
Awesome.
yeah. So is everybody okay with what we've done? I should highlight this. Bloop. Okay, so we have a board, let's look at the calendar. We have a board budget workshop on Wednesday, which is open to the public. It might be good for members of the team to just be there.
Wait, next Wednesday?
Um,
Well, we were
Six, I
planning,
think.
yeah, we were planning on,
No, it's Wednesday.
we were
Or
planning
whatever
on
the
there being,
30th is.
30th is Tuesday.
Tuesday.
we were planning on there being an IBB session next week anyway, so.
Yeah, so the budget workshop is Tuesday the 30th. It just might be good for you guys to be here to listen to
What
the
time is
conversation.
that? 6?
6.
Good.
Do you want me to,
Can we speak in those meetings?
it's a workshop, so the public is able to, ask questions and, of the group, right?
Yeah, during that portion of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have an exec session.
We do. No, we don't. It's in May.
We might want to.
For insurance. We did find out, just so you guys know, our rates are going up 7.7%, which is how much money?
$457,000.
You already know.
Yeah.
For medical.
And that'd be keeping everything status quo, as is. And we've worked so hard to get our deductibles lower, our co-pays lower, everything. They did have some offerings, new voluntary offerings as far as like, we haven't had short-term disability in a while. There would be some offerings for that. Jason brought up Life Flight today, so we're gonna do that. That would be, all those are on the employee. Life Flight.
It's like Life Flight, it's a one-time $75 per year that the employee would pay, but then it's 100% covered. We were talking, Nellie was saying, Natalie was saying that if you took a light flight or a Life Flight from Moscow to Spokane, it would be in the neighborhood of $55,000. Jessica was saying that she knows someone who had to take special arrangements because they couldn't get them into a chopper, but it was $125,000 to go from here to Harborview. And so it's like, to me, that's such a great benefit. You pay $75. That's actually cheaper than getting in an ambulance and going to KMC, because that'd be a $300 copay for the ambulance to do that. But you can get a Life Flight for $75 a year. That's a pretty good deal, I think. And it's opt-in. I mean, it's, you don't have to do it, but it's one of the benefits that. Sorry.
No, but, so yeah, that's what we're looking at is a 7.7% increase. And VSP stayed the same, no increase there. Delta Dental, no increase. Northwest Dental, no increase. Unfortunately, Willamette, they're going through some internal things. So they had like a 9.67% increase. Our EAP is going up, but that's on us. And then just with us going to Colonial Life will just be some other voluntary benefits that you guys have the ability to choose from. So.
All right, so we have board workshop next week. On Tuesday, we have agenda planning on Wednesday and policy committee on Thursday. So we're looking at Monday the 6th. What does that look like for you guys for IBB?
JV tennis is done, so I can start.
I'm gonna put it at 5:30.
Yeah.
That's not
No,
true.
it's that white Toyota and
Oh, the 6th.
Yeah, I like that.
Is there a possibility, I don't know what Ramona's schedule is. Does she work?
My Toyota.
Yes.
Is there a possibility we could start at 2:30 or 3? I don't want to hamstring Ramona. Does she work? Or
Yep, she works.
She can't do it. Okay.
The reason we started at 6 is because that was the that was the time that she could get
Okay.
here, but
I just didn't know if that
I
was.
don't
a
know what her
one-time or-
Mondays look like, but we have proteges until 5 on Monday, so
Maybe 5:30 to 8?
yeah, because all we have left to really work on is money. Do you want to share what's on your list,
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Keeper of the List?
Do you have your checkbook out?
No.
Is it all money?
There's no
basically?
money.
It's pretty much all money related.
Can you talk to us a little bit, or just to, because
Yeah.
if that's all we have left to really work out, maybe we can get it done on the 6th. That'd be nice.
I mean, yeah, so we asked our people to come up with other things other than steps and lanes and benefits.
Well, there's
Or
no
percent
lanes.
increases. Well, yeah, whatever. So the number one thing on our list was aid funds, going 100% pass through. Number two we already covered was dual credit, but I think we're okay with. I mean, we've already kind of done that, haven't we?
I want to make sure I look over with the counselor part and everything, but I think, yeah,
We didn't make any changes, so everything.
yeah, just make sure the language is good.
Number three, and our members are fully aware of, the timing and well, a while back we had told them about the state, the 4-day school week was number 3 on our list. And so I put it on there just because I've been telling our members that probably no matter what, it won't happen next
No,
year.
there's no
It's
way.
Logistically
That we're
impossible.
going, yeah, and so, and they're okay with that, but that was a big item, big ticket
Yeah,
item.
and I'm presenting the results to the board at a special board meeting on May 29th, so we can talk about how those came out and what our next steps are going to be.
And by then maybe Coeur d'Alene will have.
We, we heard from their superintendent today that he's pretty certain that they are not going to go to a 40 week.
Okay.
But of course the board has to weigh in, but that's kind of what he thinks they're going to weigh in.
Number 4 on the list was, keeping our class sizes small to low numbers, especially with the rise of escalating behaviors. We didn't define what that means, but Lakeland's been known for that forever. That's why people come here and like us. But it is a money item too. I mean, that the board's going to have to decide, if we're going to do that or not. But it's definitely a huge topic for the teachers. We talked about sick leave. We already talked about that. The coaching salary percent on that matrix, we wanted that back to increase because we didn't do it last year. Principal assistant stipends, we feel that those people should be paid at least like a head coach in their stipends because they're pretty much like a head coach. They work many days after hours, late. They come in early, leave late, type of a thing. And
What
so
would that be?
we were thinking it's 15.5%.
Of that base.
Of the base. So right now, I believe they're getting a $2,500 stipend. Three. So then it would start out about $3,800 and then go all the way up to 70 or about $6,500.
Send that for 7,500, yeah.
Yeah. So they would be accruing it and to me I think it's advantageous for that to happen because then it would, one, be an incentive for them to stay in that position if they didn't become a principal. But I just think it got brought up that we thought.
If we didn't have those positions, we wouldn't have to worry about that, right?
Right. That's right. Put them back in the classroom, Bob. Low numbers. I'll let the principals deal with you.
I just asked a question.
Number 8 on the list was bringing back music teachers for all the elementary schools.
That's been an option, we just don't have applicants, that's the problem, which is
Yeah.
why we have other specialists, because they haven't been able to fill those positions.
Yeah.
Mark Cecilla's been a strong proponent of bringing the elementary music
Yeah,
back,
for
but
sure.
the issue is nobody's majoring in elementary music. So,
Crazy.
super open to that, I just need people.
Okay. We talked about the personal days and incentive days. It was it was on there multiple times about reimbursing, the district reimbursing for credits to recertify or paying for recertification. We had negotiated that one year, and the team all agreed to, not to pay for the credits, but to pay for recertification.
The 75.
And then it went back and we didn't ratify, and then when we brought it back to the table, it was off.
Because it was a money issue.
It
so
was money
we
issue,
ended
so
with money.
yeah, we had to.
Mhm.
So that came up again.
So that's 10 items. I thought you said you had 9.
No, we have 13.
Oh, 13.
And I took 4 off.
Okay.
And then, let's see, the last one, medically reported absence allow teachers to pay the sub rate when sick leave is depleted. Instead of,
Losing their daily rate.
yeah, instead of the 1/190th.
So if they run out of sick leave and they have to take additional sick leave, Brooke works with them so if their daily rate pay is $300 a day, instead of taking $600 out this month, she'll spread that $600 out over the remainder of the contract. And he's saying instead of the $600, it would be 2 days of guest teacher pay, which would be $240. That's what he's saying. That's what he suggested.
You can smile.
She's not smiling this year.
She loves me.
She does. And she hates being the person who has to say no.
She loves me but hates the person? Is that what you're
She hates being the person who has to say
I know.
no.
I'm the mean guy. That's
Well,
the
I
hard
hear
thing
you.
to come in and be the person that has to say no to everybody
Yeah.
all the time.
You're like the teacher to start the year that never smiles.
I smile. It's just that nobody likes me, so it's alright.
And then the last one was just an option is for a longevity bonus. You know how we give the money we give money if they announce that they're going to do it earlier by January. We were thinking as a longevity, if you're in the district 1 to 10 years and you do that, you get $500. If you're in 11 to 20 years, you get $750.
For retirement.
21 to 30 years it'd be $1,000, and 30 plus years it'd be $1,500.
Is that for retirement purposes?
Per retirement? Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a one-time.
It'd be a one-time.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it's longevity because
It's a longevity retirement.
Yeah, the idea behind this is
She's like, here?
no, but if somebody's retiring after 5 years, they're getting the same dollar amount as somebody who's been in the district for 30.
Right, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so to
And we were just
kind of
thinking-
increase it.
Well, and then-
But they're not making the same wage as someone who's been in the
No,
district.
No, but I mean,
You're talking
I know
about the stipend that we give when they submit their
By-
is
letter.
it January 31st?
January
Yeah.
31st.
Yeah, so that one is
Yeah.
that one. We already have a
No,
stipend.
that wouldn't be a big cost to the district.
No.
And it's just, again, it's one more thing we want to incentivize longevity and
Yeah.
retaining.
We want the staff to stay around.
Right, right.
And little things like that.
Yeah, and then one that I didn't add on here is, we pay for BA 24 and a master stipend, but we do nothing for a PhD.
Right.
Aww.
I believe, I think we have probably 3 or 4 in
We
the
do,
district.
we have, yeah, under 5.
But I feel that we should look at that number as well, because why are we incentivizing a master's, but if PhD, you just get the master's.
Well, we do get reimbursed from the state for.
The other two.
Well, but the other thing is with us not having lanes anymore, that is an incentive for people to get those additional credits as much, so.
Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily, you don't need a doctorate to teach, but I definitely think that I think you're definitely of value to your district by getting a doctorate.
So that was a lot of money.
Yeah, this is all money, so.
Except for the sub-pay.
So-
I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
Except for the sub-pay
I
one.
do want to paint a picture for you so that you can talk to your people and kind of figure out what's most important.
Well, that's why I ordered them.
Right, so the reality for us is the increase in discretionary money is like $2,700 per support unit,
2,300.
$2,300.
We're actually losing
But-
money on benefits.
But when you look at what we got last year for per support unit at our 222 support units, and then you multiply our 213 support units we're gonna have this year with the increase, it's exactly the same amount of money. There is no increase in discretionary money. We're not, they didn't put any additional money on the career ladder for teachers, and they didn't even put the $63.59 that they required us to give teachers last year as a pay raise into the career ladder. They did write legislation that they're gonna provide that money again, so it's ongoing, so that we're not paying the $63.59 that we paid last year on a salary schedule that doesn't have it. So they are providing it, but it's not new money, it's no additional money. The only increases that they gave us were 3% to the base for administrators and 3% to the base for classified, and we are so above what we pay that doesn't really help all that much. So we're not getting new money this year, and we're writing a budget that is going to be about $1 million less in revenue than what we got this year. So when we are talking money,
Because of declining enrollment.
right, when we're talking money, we are just gonna have to come in and be really realistic with what we do. Like, in my mind, the most important thing is that everybody gets their step, because we've been already in the position where we froze people, and that was a nightmare. So I don't want to do that again. I don't know.
Well, and the good news
If
about the
that's gonna
step
cost.
is that that step has increased from years past. So right now it's 2%, whereas before a step was not even 1%. It was like,
Well, it was about a 1.5.
no, I did them all today.
Did ya?
I looked, and it's not even 1% across the, going straight down. It's
Well, it's
9,
arbitrary.
it's like 0.96.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and
I hate being a Debbie Downer, and I've been dreading IBB because I knew, just based on what we were seeing from the state, that this was not going to be a great year for us money-wise. And the declining enrollment is what's killing us. So over the last 2 years, we're down 200 kids. We went from 4,700 to 4,500. And we went from enrollment, where we were fully funded for the 4,700, to now we have 4,500, but we're only getting funded for 92% of them because our ADA is about 92%. So we still are obligated to have teachers in those classrooms, but they're not fully funding those kids. And that's just our current reality right now. We just are gonna have to be.
How does the, so, like, we don't get money for facility funds, right?
We're getting, so that's kind of
So-
a sticky thing. So they gave us some there's school facility funds and there's school modernization funds. The way that originally it was presented, we thought we would be able to have our facility levy and these school facility funds next year. It's actually a tax relief program. So the money that we thought we were getting for facilities,
The 18 million?
No,
that's the
1.2.
modernization fund. So
Okay.
there's 1.2, which is actually going to be 1.6 based on the most recent worksheet I saw from the state. We actually have to do a hierarchy where you pay down bond payments. Our bond will be paid off, so
Right.
then it'll go against a supplemental levy. So all of that money that we thought we would be able to use
Has to
towards
go
the
to-
facility will offset our supplemental levy,
Gotcha.
which will be great for our patrons
Yeah.
and our community, but
But as long as we
it's
have
not
a-
extra money.
Right, and as long as we have a supplemental levy on the books, we won't get any facility dollars because it's a tax relief.
For that portion. Now, the school modernization funds, that is the bond that the state's taking out. It's $1 billion bond that they're taking out in order to give schools money for facilities. If we annualize that, we have to do the same thing where we apply it to our supplemental levy first. If we don't annualize it and we take it as a lump sum, we're taking on some risk, because if they call the bonds, we have to pay the money back even if we've spent it. But we would basically pull all of it down at once, and we would have the 18 million. There's some caveats to it. We have to have an approved 10-year plan. We have to get our buildings to good or perfect with that money.
Oh, God.
The 10-year plan has to address
Whatever
how we
that is.
get from good to perfect.
How do you define that?
And that's and I got to sit on a lovely webinar today for 2 hours, telling us all the things that we have to do.
Jessica and I both are required to watch these webinars. I was in a meeting all day, so I have to now go find the archive and watch it. So that I
Yeah,
can
they had
say I
technical
did it.
difficulties for the first 20 minutes, so you can skip that. So,
Excellent.
but so there is some money coming in for facilities, but it's really tricky now because we were hoping with the tax relief one that we didn't realize was tax relief that we would be able to maybe forego doing a plant facilities
Yeah.
levy. Now we kind of have to do a plant facilities levy because otherwise that 18 million is
won't have
basically
any.
gonna be maybe 400,000 more than what we're currently getting for our plant facilities levy, and that doesn't get our buildings
Yeah,
where we need them.
and that was my question, how much of that money that we're getting will be extra money
Well,
that
and
we are
here's
used
the-
to paying out of our general fund?
And here's the fun thing. They're taking away our state lottery money and they're taking away our bond levy equalization, which is about $500,000 a year.
Yeah.
So we're losing money on top of, we're losing revenue on
Yeah.
top
Yeah,
of.
well, they're taking the money and they're putting it
They're
into
rolling
the,
it.
so there were two House bills, House Bill 292, which is the
Tax
the-
relief.
The tax relief bill, which is supposed to be the school facilities bill. So those dollars that we used to get that we could use for, like our lottery dollars, we could use to
We're really
pay.
not
Towards
gonna get them
maintenance.
at all.
Right.
So
And-
basically what's happened is they've created this facilities money, but they've taken it from other places or are putting, you know, strings attached to it to where, you know, you're basically robbing Peter to pay Paul. And they've really done not a whole
Right, and
lot.
the reality is, there's one district in the state of Idaho who will get to use their facility dollars on their facilities because every other district in the state has a supplemental levy.
Supplemental levy.
And it will go,
So what's that do to our future ability to run supplemental levies?
That's the thing, we're gonna have to run supplemental levies. We're actually prohibited from talking about the tax relief stuff on the ballot measure itself. So
Your campaigning can include. it
your
in the
campaigning
ballot,
can
yeah.
talk about the tax relief,
we're gonna
but
have to
we
be
can't have it in the
so,
ballot measure.
so clear with the community about.
And they took away our two of our
Election days.
election days, so we no longer have August. They took March away last year. With this new one, they took away August. So we have November and we have May.
When everybody shows up.
So we still have the 1.5 million in property tax relief from the law last year.
1.7. Sorry.
And then now we get the new 1.6 that was supposed to help us maintain our facilities, but it has to be property tax relief first. So now we have 3.3 million that we get to use to offset the supplemental levy.
It's 2.9. Sorry.
You just told me 1.6 for.
1.6 for the. It was 1.7 and then 1.6.
That's
And you add those two,
3.3.
it's 2.9.
1.7 and 1.6 is 2.9. You are an accountant, my dear, and that
I'm looking
is
at Ryan.
not true.
Ryan Cantrell's spreadsheet. So
Well-
I'm thinking they might have reduced the 1.7. So
Well,
I don't
because
have
our,
anything.
I think it's 1.7 and 1.5. So anyway, roughly 3 million that we don't get to use for facilities. That gets to offset the cost to the patrons. And then we have to try to explain why it's a good deal for them when they go to the polls and the language is going to say this is what it's going to cost you, and we're saying it's actually, you're only actually paying taxes on this much because the state's paying this much. It's very
But we can't put it on the ballot.
problematic. Right. So
Well, and even in.
they didn't do us any favors this year. you
Mark
guys.
and I were at delegate assembly and Governor Little spoke, and first thing out of his mouth was how proud he was of the $1.2 billion facility package.
Which is.
You know, so our patrons are gonna read that, they're
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
see that our district gets 18 million, and then
Wow.
they're gonna be like, what, you just got 18 million, why are you wanting to do another bond or a levy?
Yeah, exactly.
It really tied our hands.
Same kind of issue, only different than what we confronted last year over the raised money.
Yeah.
You know, they went out and public said, you know,
Yeah.
how much of a good
Everybody's
deal you
getting
got
this
on
much
the
money.
raises, but nobody could meet it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I hate to be Debbie Downer, but this is gonna be a very skinny year.
It's a good lesson in the importance of showing up to the polls.
And having good student attendance.
Showing up to the polls, and I would like to say, you know, to the community that, you know, doesn't want to pay for levies or new bonds too, then, you know, I mean, and then, you know, that's fine if they believe that. But I would like them to be going down to the state and talking to legislators about fully funding schools then. Because, I mean, if we can't, you know, if we can't run those things and we can't operate on what we need, then we need help from those community members on going down to the state and really talking to legislators and making sure that our state now,
Well, and it was in the
is an
paper
advocate.
today, the revolving door with superintendents in Idaho, and I would say a large reason of that is how Idaho funds schools.
Yeah.
They feel like the fact that they have to go beg for money because, and it's not extra, it's just to maintain.
Right.
It's not
That is
supplemental.
all time consuming for the year that you have to do it, because we're just not fully funded.
But every year it's the same kind of stuff. We're gonna give you $300 million, but you're only gonna get 150 of it, or we're gonna give you $1 billion for your facilities, but it just means you gotta use it over here.
It's
It's
the
the same
political shell
stuff.
game.
Over
Smoke and mirrors.
just so they look good in the newspaper
Mhm.
instead of actually do good in their state.
Yep.
The good news is, we will survive.
Yeah, we will.
We will.
So I gave you my list. Do you guys have anything on yours that,
Nope, we just
Does the-
wanna figure out what
Try
money
to-
we do have to talk about, so that'll be part of the work that we'll do with the board next week. And then, just figure out the best way to use it.
Trying to prepare a budget that doesn't touch fund balance.
yeah. I think out of our whole entire list, like I said, I think, our salary schedule one, we just created it. We don't wanna go, we
No,
don't
we
wanna
can't
mess with
wait.
that.
No, that's,
And then the APE funds, I think if there's anything that has to do with, pulling money out of those APE funds, I think we're gonna have a really hard time ratifying it.
even if, so I think we have 35 people who are gonna get 8.5 this year, is that right?
75.
75. 75 people are gonna get 8.5 this year, but then that means you have 225 who potentially aren't gonna get any raises. So-
They'll get their 2%, and it's an incentive to get the APE funds. I mean, to me, I just don't know. I know you guys all sitting around the table are getting those funds, but I don't know if the rest of the population's not. Anybody
Right.
that knows me, I'm an advocate for everybody. I mean, I go out there and look at that. I just can't look somebody in the eye and say, you're not gonna get the money you earned and that the state is rewarding you for to pay somebody else that hasn't earned it.
I would just remind you, Jason, that at least the 2 years that I've been here, we've always talked about that.
Yeah, we
5th
talked
year
about year 5.
Could be problematic.
And I'm not saying we can't look at those numbers. I know it's been, mentioned before that we keep it at year 4 and put everything else back in. I don't think that was ever the intent in year 5, but
That's
I'm
what
not
we
saying we
discussed
can't look at
last
those
year.
numbers, yeah.
Well, yeah, especially when, and it was Brian Kluss actually who said at some point we're gonna have to talk about the 8.5 money because this may not be sustainable, so
Yeah,
that's the reality. I think we just at least have to be willing to have the conversation.
yeah.
Again, for me, and this is just me personally, I don't know where the board stands and I don't even know where the rest of the team stands, but I think we have to give steps and what Jessica's figured out, it's, or Brooke did, one of the two of them did, and it's like $350,000 for the certified staff to all move down, but then you have to apply that to the administrators and the classified staff, I guess, unless the board makes the decision that only the certified teachers are moving and everybody else stays, because we can't negotiate for anybody else,
Well,
but
you couple
that's been our
that with
practice.
the increase in the medical premiums.
Yeah.
I mean,
And we're looking at probably $1 million between
Just those,
those couple things.
yeah.
We have an increase in Percy rates this year as well
on the district side or both sides?
on the district side.
So, did they give extra funds for the 4% for administrators and 4% for classified?
Well, but
It's
it's
3%.
3%, but it's on the base, so the base for the administrators is like $60,000.
Yeah, it's on the
And the classified is
minimal.
very low, and they only
So
pay
it's
us,
only on the base, it's not.
right, and they only pay us for 88-ish certified teachers, and we have our staff, and we have 300 of them.
Classified.
Classified.
Yeah.
So that's 212
Can kind of go over that.
FTE that we employee we get no money for?
At the February budget workshop, budget work session, I had presented a lot of the salary-based apportionment calculation. I'd be happy to bring that updated for next year to our next IBB meeting. Just because I think it's interesting information how we get to the numbers that we get to.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
I have a pretty detailed explanation that I think is
Okay.
easy to understand.
Good, thank you.
The one that you created for the board, yeah, that was really helpful. So, anyway, I don't want to be doom and gloom, and we can get creative and talk about lots of ways to reward staff. But our reality is, the state did not help us this year.
They're still, they're trying to figure out how to get to that weighted per student funding. There's a gap of funding because of the switch from enrollment to ADA, and they were still trying to figure out how to get that out to everybody. They had a temporary thing for this year to get a little bit back to us this year. They're trying to figure out for next year. They really want to get to an outcomes-based funding formula, and I know that Superintendent Critchfield was very adamant that they're going to push that really hard next year. But until then, we still have that gap.
Yeah. Do we know how many people will not be back at this point next year, whether it's retirees or category ones
Like
or
15-ish, is that
Yeah,
right?
but I mean, we also
But
have.
a lot of them were special educators, we have to replace them. I've sat down with elementary principals and we've looked at class sizes as far as just rolling it with no new kids, just rolling everybody up, what that looks like and how many staff. I've met with Chris McDougal and talked about some reductions there. I need to meet with Jimmy and Ryan to do the same in Lakeland Middle School, but just trying to figure out where we can not fill a position and not get class sizes up to where they're too high. So we are working on that. But, 10 certified staff is roughly $700,000. We have a lot of classified staff we don't get paid for, and a lot of them are special education related. So Kelsey has been working with people trying to get, instead of one-on-ones, can we do 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s, and try to cut back on the number of paras. So we are looking at all of those pieces to try to help offset the cost. So, and then our reality is next year we have to get the supplemental levy passed.
That's going to be extremely painful if we don't.
So that'll be.
I don't even know what that looks like.
That'll be November.
Do you
The
have
board
that-
has to make a decision about that.
November.
Do you have
or-
your
That's my
sheets put together
recommendation.
for everything
Or
that's
May.
on supplemental versus what's
November,
not on
May,
supplemental?
I'm gonna ask for November.
I know you were planning on trying to put something
I
like
mean,
that together.
because you have to know.
I have
Well,
some
it's
of
a-
that.
and it's a presidential election, which means our parents are going to be at the polls.
Yeah.
And so.
I was asking
so
if she had her
we-
sheets
Both.
split for the supplemental levy and then the general fund. Just so we have an understanding of what's on and not on.
Okay.
What percentage, I never get to see on the board books what the percentage is of our carryover right now.
Our fund balance?
Yeah, fund balance.
So it's not a realistic number right now. I'm gonna try and get the payroll accrual done this week, because we have to accrue certified contracts because they get paid through August.
But they get charged back to this school year, so.
So if I can get the payroll accrual done this week, we'll have a better look at what that is. That's what I'm hoping to do for the budget work session next week, is to have that information, because that'll give us a more realistic look at where we're at fund balance wise.
Yeah.
If you look at it right now, it looks great.
Right, but at the, as of the audit with where we were the end of last year, it was like, we were like 5% fund balance, 6%. fund balance, which is lower than we want it to be. So, we're supposed to be somewhere between 8, policy-wise, we're supposed to be 8, between 8 and 16.
Well, and we had been running above the,
We had a lot of spending last year.
and
At
an oversight.
Mhm.
At the March board budget work session, I presented some information, again, that I think would be helpful for everybody to see. It was a 5-year analysis on budget to actual spending, and you could truly see where our overspends were last year. We went over by 2.2 million last year, and that eats into fund balance when you do that. And a good chunk of it was special ed, but it
And then
wasn't
the other
all of
big
it.
chunk was facilities.
Facilities, but we didn't have a plant facility levy last year.
So,
Well, in spite of what the news says, the legislature didn't do us any favors.
No.
They really didn't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I really.
just on behalf of the board, we're well recognized, whatever we do, somewhere there'll be some pain.
Yeah.
And you can't make it come together without doing that. It's a proverbial balloon, if you push it on one side to get something out on the other side, you've given something away on this
Yeah.
side. And there'll be some of that. I don't know what it'll be exactly, but there'll be some of that. But again, we will survive.
Yeah.
yeah, we just might have to get creative. So, I appreciate your list.
Yeah, this is
And would
Yeah.
love if we could do even half of what's on there this year, but we will figure out what we can do and
Yeah.
then decide together on what we want that to look like.
Sounds good.
And
So we're meeting not next week.
Right.
Week after.
so
Are
I
you guys
did,
able to make the
Monday the
board?
6th.
yeah, I did invite you to all to the board workshop, so if you can't all come, it'll be also recorded if you wanted to listen to it at home or whatever, but there might just be some good conversation for you here and then just some information Jessica will share. And then we'll meet for IBB at 5:30 on Monday the 6th. And that is the beginning of Teacher Appreciation Week.
Oh, yeah.
So
Hear that, Jessica?
I do appreciate all of you.
we might have to bring you some cookies or something.
Hey, unless there's dollar signs attached,
I know.
Jessica, I don't want to hear it.
So thanks, you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a great